welcome to our next Allica Brokercast. Today we're going to talk about all things green, and I have James Breteche here, who heads up our asset finance product team. I'm Tracy Millsom, one of the asset finance BDMs. Allica have been serving the UK SME market for a couple of years now and have a fantastic panel of brokers who introduce mainly hard asset proposals to us. Last year, we were accredited with the British Business Bank to offer RLS and launched our medium and soft asset offering. This enabled us to help more customers and brokers with funding assets outside of our standard hard asset appetite. We are delving into the green asset space now, and this is what we're going to discuss today. Where can Allica help even more customers and brokers in this vital space? So, James, can you give us an overview of the sector as you see it and your thoughts on the green asset market?
Yeah, and first of all, actually, well done on my name. But so I guess in terms of the market, the first and probably the key thing is that this is an important and growing sector. Just to bring that to life a little bit. So, for example, the electric LCV market, which is obviously one asset in a sea of assets that can come under that kind of green umbrella, is a £640 million market. We've seen we think there'll be a 64% increase over the next 12 months. Air source heat pumps, another example, it's about an £80 million market, and we're expecting between now and 2030 every year, we're expecting to see about 8% growth. So you can see already that the size is there, and the important thing is that we think it will continue growing. And I think there's three drivers behind that growth. Number one, probably the main driver, as you would expect, is energy costs, and that's driving people and businesses to adopt green assets. And we think that's probably going to continue just because the war in Ukraine is still going on, and also, economies like China's are going to start to pick up over the coming year or two as well. So that's probably the main driver at the moment. But longer term, we think that ESG supply chain pressures are probably also going to help drive the growth of the sector. And by that, what I mean is that governments will develop policies and around ESG, and that will put pressure, and there will be requirements on those big corporate companies who will then pass them down the supply chain, so onto their SMEs that form those supply chains. And basically, those requirements will come down onto the SMEs, and they will also need to fund and think about green assets. So that's the kind of longer term driver as well that we see in the market. And I think thirdly, and this one is always there in the background, is that people have their own personal concerns, as you can imagine, about climate change. And while they might be personal concerns, it's those same people obviously lead businesses as well, and they own businesses. So that's always going to be in the background as well as a driver behind the market. So I think in summary, there's a lot of opportunity already in the green sector, but we think that there will continue to be more opportunities over the coming years as well.
Cool. Excellent. You mentioned ESG supply chains there. So for those that don't know what that means, can you just sort of elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, it stands for environmental, social and governance. But in short, it's basically a set of standards or criteria that measure a business's impact on the environment or society. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what it is.
Cool. Thanks, James. Next, we know there are one or two specialist lenders in this sector who were established when the government-funded feed-in tariffs were in place. But overall, what's your view on the current state of funding for UK SMEs?
Yeah, I would probably summarise it as not great at the moment. I think generally there's probably, amongst funders, there's probably a lack of specialist knowledge. Sometimes credit appetite can be quite restrictive. So, for instance, appetite around refinance and refinancing green assets might be a bit restricted. And sometimes funders don't have the right product capability for the sector either. And the other thing that can happen, and you've probably seen in the news, for instance, is that there can be kind of funder greenwashing. So funders, obviously not everybody, but sometimes you can come across things being badged up as green, but in effect it's just a label and there's kind of no fundamentals behind it. Having said all of that, I think there are some funders that do it well. The problem we see, however, with those funders is that they're starting to look at the kind of bigger, larger installations. So, tens of millions of pounds.
Sure.
And they're not really staying true to the SME market. And we think in Allica that the SME market remains very underserved. And obviously this is something we want to address generally as a bank, as Allica.
Yeah.
But particularly in the green space as well, this is something we want to address. And I think ultimately the technology in the green sector is moving fast, and therefore sometimes the green assets can be viewed as riskier because it's less predictable around what that asset will be worth, at the end of the term. And there's not enough knowledge in the sector. And I think both of these issues can be solved by basically building expertise as a funder, building that expertise.
Cool. Greenwashing.
Yes.
Don't know what that is. So what does that mean?
Yeah, I think in summary, it's basically just marketing spin, in effect, right, to persuade people that a company is greener than it might otherwise be, I think is the best way of summarising.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. So what do Allica want to do? What is our goal and how are we going to build on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple, but it takes time, and that is to invest and build expertise within Allica. And that means also building the flexibility to meet the requirements of funding these assets. And ultimately our goal is, and it's a big goal, is to be the green lender of choice for SMEs. And what I mean by that is we want expertise in Allica. So we want to understand the suppliers that we can work with. We want to have a network of trusted installers. We want to have trusted introducers as well, but also credit appetite that understands the assets ultimately. And then lastly, obviously, I've touched on this earlier, but product capability. We need the right product capability to support the sector. Do we have all of this stuff today? I don't think we do, but it's something that we're looking to build over the coming years. And it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting for Allica to be building into this space. And there will hopefully be further updates to follow from Allica as we kind of progress.
Sure, excellent. And finally, so what should our brokers consider when they are sending us an application for a green asset?
Yes, good question. I think, in short, consider all aspects, as you probably would for most deals anyway, but more so for green assets, there's a real importance on the supplier. So does the supplier, well, who are they obviously, but do they offer any guarantees, any kind of warranties, and also the installer? So is that installer accredited? Do they offer any guarantees? And an example of why this is important is, so if you think about solar panels, for instance, you can, if you search in the news or whatever, you can see that there has been issues sometimes, but those issues are caused actually by the installation and the lack of maintenance of them, rather than the actual solar panel itself. So this is one example of why the supplier and the installer are really important when it comes to thinking about green assets. The other things, obviously, to think about are on the credit side. Does it bring any cost savings for the business or the customer? Are there any subsidies that are applicable? So things like the renewable heat incentive, what is it, the subsidy, how much is it, how long's left to go? Those kind of details are really important for us when we come to assessing green assets. Yeah. So in short, the more information, the better, I think. And obviously, if you're unsure as a broker, talk to your BDM. They're always available. And even if they don't know the answer, they will find it. So I think that's probably the key thing here, is just talk to us about these deals.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that, James. I think that's been really useful and positive information on what Allica are going to do in this sector. So I think it's a watch this space for our broker partners. we'll certainly have more updates shortly. So if you are watching this and you're not a broker and you'd like to get in touch, then please do. And we'll put you in touch with a BDM that's local to you. But if not, that's all I've got to say really, is thank you very much, James. Thanks for joining me, and look forward to some updates coming shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. See ya.